All right, thank you for tuning into the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast. We have our fifth and final segment. We have our wrestling news roundup, where we find out the hottest wrestling news in the professional wrestling industry. Something that I kind of like to give you guys headed into the weekend on Saturday and Sunday, where you guys will miss me dearly. Totally waiting pins and needles for Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern time for your boy E. Come back on YouTube. So yeah, it's so we have moving forward. So yeah, we're gonna talk about our wrestling news roundup. So our wrestling news, we have Matthew Jackson of the EVPs of the Elite says that people take advantage of the AEW, and honestly, I totally agree with that. Double or Nothing was AEW's first pay-per-view. They've come a long way, and Matthew Jackson had this to say: "It's a big night." And I quote: "5 years ago, we welcomed AEW to a new world of wrestling. Um, People need to accept the fact of how fast this company honestly really grown. I know a lot of people love to throw that narrative of, AEW is just like WCW. No, it's not. No, it's not. WCW, it was like from the Jim Crockett promotions. They got a whole bunch of they got Lex Luthor, Razor Ramon, Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash. They got a whole bunch of veterans and stuff like that. AEW did it all from scratch. AEW didn't have they had they of course there was a couple of veterans, of course there was a couple of guys from the professional wrestling free agency that they signed ultimately just because they were free agents, dude. That doesn't necessarily mean they want to recapture something inside of like a nostalgic fact inside of a wrestling fan's mind. They honestly they have young, they have middle, and they have some of the old veterans kind of helping out. And AEW, honestly, I feel like it is a little stepped on. Honestly, it is a little taken advantage. And also, a lot of people like to pin the AEW against WWE. And you kind of see Tony Khan saying this when he, talks about why he takes jabs at WWE is to kind of, build tension between the companies. But to be honest, you can tell Tony Khan doesn't really care. He doesn't care what WWE fans like. Oh, I don't want to watch AEW. It's not wrestling, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't care. He's not fighting like Eric Bischoff was fighting so delicately and was fighting so no not delicate like aggressively wanted to take down WWE. Tony Khan doesn't want to do that. He has his own wrestling promotion. He has his own guys. He has his own wrestling beautiful world that is it's putting on great wrestling shows. So I don't think he gives a damn about ratings in terms of like WWE. So definitely side with Matthew Jackson in terms of that. Next, we have a WWE King of the Ring, King and Queen of the Ring in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. We'll have an honored celebrity actor, and I'm going to butcher this, Ibrahim Al Hajjaz. Haj will be featured in a promo. I can, obviously you saw him, in Crown Jewel on, the Miz TV where he laid an elbow on Grayson Waller. You probably see something a little like this, and that's just to kind of pander to like the Saudi Arabian kind of crowd, like you know what I mean. Like it'd be kind of like having like George Clooney or someone like, randomly come in here and be like, oh, like he beats the crap out of him, kind of like stuff like that. Like, but it's cool. It's cool. That's kind of what WWE does. So, not really surprised we're going to see that. Next, we see WWE SummerSlam coming to Minnesota in 2026. It's a two-night event. The first time SummerSlam has ever been a two-night event. And, just the WrestleMania, just SummerSlam making it to Minneapolis isn't really the speculation, isn't really like, that preposterous or like, kind of mind blowing. But it's the fact that what kind of layers behind it. A lot of people kind of had speculation that since SummerSlam, the biggest party of the summer, also one of the biggest events in WWE history, making it a two-night event will overly compensate for WrestleMania going to Saudi Arabia, which kind of makes sense because it'd be like, okay, since we don't have WrestleMania here, we'll treat SummerSlam, we'll make it a two-night event, and we will treat it as if it is WrestleMania. So I feel like that's a huge reason why they are doing it. A lot of the professional wrestling world on Twitter is going absolutely nuts about this. A lot of people don't want to see WWE WrestleMania going to Saudi Arabia because think about it, that's airfare, that's hotel, that's tickets, packages, and stuff like that. You got to pay for lodging. It's going to be a huge pain in the ass. It's going to be a huge pain in the ass for a wrestling fan to ultimately make it across seas to Saudi Arabia to watch a Saudi Arabia producted WrestleMania. And I'm not trying to throw shade in. I'm not trying to say it's going to be bad. I overall, I'm just trying to play the both sides, trying to see overall it could be good for international aspect of it. Saudi Arabia, the UK, Germany, and Japan are huge fans of of the WWE. Besides the United States, they're the top four. They're the top four viewers in terms of region, in terms of in terms of countries, in terms of continents. So it doesn't really surprise me that WWE will want to take it international, but it's kind of interesting to kind of ponder this whole thing about WWE SummerSlam. So next we have Mercedes Moné. She claimed that the WWE ultimately handcuffed her, ultimately kind of put her in a bad space, and it was a huge reason why her and Naomi did walk out in May of 2022. So, and I remember watching that. I remember watching Mercedes Moné and Naomi. I thought it was fake. Obviously, there was huge backdrop behind it. There was some truth to it, which is the reason why wrestling could be so great. Because sometimes you're looking at it, you're like, oh, dude, that's not real. And then lo and behold, Mercedes Moné was truly upset with the way WWE Creative was handling her character, and she should be. She should be. That's the reason why a lot of these women's wrestlers, like Ronda Rousey, said writers in the WWE during the Vince McMahon era did put next to nothing, put marshmallows. They didn't do shit like crap. They didn't do crap for the women's division, their character development and stuff like that. So obviously Mercedes Moné was right. She was great to walk out of WWE, and she felt she wanted to make women's wrestling like overly globalized, which she's doing really well on AEW. Obviously, have AEW with Ring of Honor. Sometimes they have partnerships with Impact Wrestling. So yeah. Next, we have Vince Russo. Vince Russo, formerly, he was in the Attitude Era. He was one of the top writers for WCW. He was featured on WCW, with Eric Bischoff, during the, Monday Night Wars where WCW were doing their thing. But ultimately, he said CM Punk is definitely not someone that WWE should invest stock in because he's injury ridden. I don't really necessarily agree with that per se because CM Punk, he is definitely a little seasoned. I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, I like to keep it real. I like to kind of acknowledge both sides here. I understand where Vince is coming from, and then I also would understand what CM Punk's backlash could possibly be. Because ever since CM Punk joined AEW, he's been featured in matches that included like blood, chairs, steel cage, being thrown off of ladders, and basically all the above. So CM Punk, I feel like he still has a lot of good years ahead of him. It's probably not decades, but CM Punk, he and the WWE universe, when he came back and he ultimately stood in front of the WWE universe and he was like, look, guys, I effed up. I effed up. I had that pipe bomb. I missed you guys. I should have been here this whole entire time. And I'm not saying that Punk's stint or his few years in AEW was, you know, problematic or like he shouldn't have been there. But I still feel like I think Vince is wrong. I think Russo's wrong. I think CM Punk is going to come back bigger and stronger than ever. So definitely can't wait. Waiting on pins and needles to find him and Drew McIntyre finally going at it. And lastly, before you guys move on, totally went overtime and I apologize. Bailey names AEW star that she wants to face. She picks Chris Statlander. Chris Statlander is definitely she's been international. She's been kind of assessed as well as like a Willow Nightingale, and it kind of just made me think about it. I was like, that's crazy because Willow Nightingale, I've often made this comparison on podcasts and stuff like that. That she kind of throws like that baby face that like she runs around the ring. She's a total baby face. She was like Bailey before Bailey became the ultimate heel that she was, creating damage control. Chris Statlander, obviously one of the best women's wrestlers nationwide. She's been in a lot of independent promotions all over New York, all over. I think, and don't quote me on this, I think she also wrestled in Florida. I could be wrong. I could be tripping. But she ultimately ended up on AEW. Chris Statlander, she's a great superstar. So I would honestly love to kind of see that match. Obviously they kind of still have the best way that they can kind of fight each other be part of like a wrestling kind of, beautiful, just like it's like a symphony. Wrestling is a symphony, and it's absolutely awesome. And yeah. I have a little fettuccine against 68, my man. What happened tonight on SmackDown? Can you give me a quick? I have not actually seen SmackDown. I just hit a preview of it. I'm a dork. I'm sorry. Like whenever like I watch wrestling and I can't watch it, I record it. I have it on my DVR, and I'm going to start it from the beginning. I will not forbid myself from checking Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook because I want to be surprised. I love that ultimate, like, surprising aspect of it. So yeah, totally run out of time. Sorry guys. Let's go ahead and, finish this up real quick. We have my boy Emran on with the soccer podcast, so stay tuned. You soccer fans out there, this guy, very knowledgeable young man, very good at what he does. But obviously I have to say goodbye. Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to like Superman punch that like and subscribe button to the show. Show support, give me positive feedback, or if you have to, throw some negative shade, bro, but just keep it moderate. I can handle it. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Give me your opinions. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. We ultimately, this is our podcast. We're a wrestling fandom. We belong together. We belong together. So it really does make a difference, guys. So, don't be afraid to, comment, like, subscribe, chat, watch the show after, give me your opinions about it. And we also invite you to like us on Twitter/X, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, so you guys can get more content and updates. Like I said before, if I have not made you a wrestling fan by now, we have a bunch of sports shows. We have Sports with TJ and Jeremy. We have the Chip Shot Football Podcast with Manny, Football Podcast with Kenneth. We also have Hoops and Heels, your one-stop shop for women's sports with Samantha. We have the Andrew Tate Show. We just have shows. The NBA playoffs are absolutely heating up. You're going to get the best content, the best takes, and the hottest stats analysis from my boy Nelson from the GSMC Basketball Podcast. So make sure you stay into that. We have my boy Chris on fantasy. We just podcast sports. So don't be afraid to check that out. Be a part of this GSMC Sports bloodline that I love so much. So once again, thank you guys so much. Have a lovely Memorial weekend. Stay safe. Love you. Hope to see you Monday at 8 p.m. So hey, stay beautiful.